All right, and we're going.
Regardless of how you feel this morning, you could be feeling better. That's just one takeaway we want you to have from this show and every show every Saturday morning here on KFOR FM 103.3, 1240 AM with Maximize Living Radio. Good Life Family Chiropractor, Dr. Jake Tucker. Welcome in, Dr. Jake.
Good morning, Dale. How's it going this morning?
I'm doing very, very well. Now, the backstory to this is last week you started your series on cancer. Excellent information. It's available on your website for folks to go back and review, listen, pick up details, review. And if they haven't heard that show from last week, it's available, and we're going to extend on from that.
Yeah, and absolutely. Go to facebook.com/AskDrJake. You can see me record these live shows with Dale. You can just tune into the podcast. You can download that to your phone so you can take it with you wherever you're going through the week. And I highly recommend it. Most of this information that I'm sharing with you is so highly technical that I have trouble just simplifying it for the radio sometimes. And so you need to hear it 2 or 3 times. But the focus of today's show is really just, are you brown grass or are you green grass? And we'll get into that in a second. But I had a 13-year-old boy when I was practicing last year. And he came in because I met his mom out at a farmer's market and was kind of talking to her about different health conditions. You know, she was a nurse, and so she had a lot of experience in the field. And so she just kind of started asking me questions about various conditions. And so I started talking to her about the shape of the spine and how it affects exactly what her son was experiencing. See, he's at 13 years old. He was involved in basketball, track and field. He lifted weights. They, as a family, were mostly vegetarian. The only meats that they ate were naturally raised, organically raised in most cases. Usually they knew the farmer, so they knew exactly how that animal was raised. And he was experiencing not just headaches, but severe digestive problems. Severe to the point where his fecal matter contained blood, and it wasn't regular. He couldn't go but like once or twice a week. And so I suggested that we check out his vagus nerve activity. And you're going to want to note that key word there, because the vagus nerve, it controls these, not the stress response, but the relaxation response in all of your digestive organs, in your heart, in your lungs. And so we brought him in. It turns out that he had a less and less rare condition where basically the tension on his spinal cord, because of the shape of his spine, was pulling his brain, the cerebellar tonsils, down into his neck. The top couple of bones of the neck surrounded and protect the brainstem. Well, in his case, it was also putting pressure on his cerebellar tonsils because of the tension on the brain from the spinal cord because of the shape of his spine. We got him under care, started adding some things in supplement-wise that changed the digestive system around, and within a week, he hadn't had any blood in his feces. None at all. Within a week. And we continued on in care because it was the shape of his spine that was creating the tension and the pressure on the vagus nerve and on those cerebellar tonsils that was keeping it from healing in the first place. But he just responded beautifully. And so if you are a loved one or sitting there and you've got any type of autoimmune condition, a digestive disorder, any sort of pain in your low back that may be indicating that there could be a disruption of normal processes there. I mean, even just a stomach ache, a reflux. These are not things that you're supposed to just cover up with medication. These are not symptoms to just cover up. What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to find the cause. Pain, disruption in normal processes are signals that your body is malfunctioning. They're signals that you need to do something about it. Not something about the pain necessarily, but you need to find the cause of the pain. You need to find the cause of this disruption. And so I want to invite you guys to take advantage of the deal that I have for all radio listeners. Anyone that calls in today, calls in this morning, if you're one of the first 4 callers, you're going to get a 50% discount off of our normal exam and x-ray price. And what I'm going to do is we're going to sit down with you this week, and I'm going to find out your health history. I'm going to do an exam to see how your spine is functioning, if there's tension on your spinal cord, if there's pressure on the vagus nerve, and if your body is healing and functioning at 100% the way that God designed it to. And if there isn't, then we're going to figure out why, and we're going to figure out how to get you well. Whatever plan it takes to get you well. We'll get you there. I'll even sit down and see if your insurance will cover any of it. More and more people are complaining about their insurance not covering chiropractic care, not covering wellness care. It wasn't designed to, but oftentimes, and Nebraska is actually a pretty good insurance state compared to some of my peers that practice around the country. We can get something that works for you. So call the number now, 531-289-7100. Ask for the discount that we're giving on air. And if you don't get it and you don't feel like leaving a message, shoot us a text message. I've got a business cell phone that you can text and you can ask for that discount. I'll communicate with you via text if you're a little bit more shy and you don't want to talk to me on the phone. That's 402-413-8825. 402-413-TUCK. That's the first 4 letters of my last name. So definitely, if you're suffering at all, you'll want to take advantage of that. But the focus of today is not necessarily your symptoms, because we know that if you wait for cancer, you're setting yourself up for failure. Cancer, on average, if you wait until you feel it, it's going to take 20 years of growing in your body before you will notice at all. And that's not doing like self-palpation. That's not doing figuring out, following your doctor's recommendations, going in for regular checkups. That's just if you wait until you feel it. But we know as a society that the earlier we detect cancer, the better our survival rate. Right now, 1 in 2 American males will get cancer in their lifetime. 1 in 3 American females will get cancer in their lifetime. And for women, it is the #1 cause of death in the United States right now. So you can't wait for it. So we've got all these tests, right? We've got PET scans, we've got MRIs, we've got CT scans, we've got mammograms, and we've got prostate exams, all these different things. We spend billions of dollars on these tests just to detect it early. But even by our best tests, it still takes still takes the cancer growing inside you 8 years before we can detect it with our best tests. And so we have to stop setting ourselves up for failure, and we have to start addressing the cause of cancer before it gets there. And I'm going to give you guys an analogy right here, because most of us have a lawn outside of our house, whether it's a lawn that somebody else takes care of or a lawn that we take care of. If it never rains, if we never turn on the sprinklers, if we never go out and water it, what color is that grass going to be?
It'll eventually be brown.
It'll eventually be brown. Think of all that water and all those different sources of water as the 5 essentials. The 5 essentials are essential because you need them in order to be healthy, in order to live. You cannot live life without them. You know you can't go 30 days without food. You'll die of starvation. You can't go 3 days without water. You can't go 3 minutes without air. But you can't go a single second without nerve supply. So that's why I'm always focusing on nerve supply. But those are all of our essentials. When you break it down, when you look at nutrition, right, you need food. You need not just food, but good food to keep you alive. You don't just want to stay alive, you need to thrive. We want you thriving, because when you close off that nutrient flow, not just calorie flow, but nutrient flow, all these basic vitamins and minerals that your body needs to keep the normal processes going, you need those on a daily basis. Yeah, you can live without them. You can be alive without them for 30 days. You can live with them for just a trickle. But yeah, your grass is starting to turn a little brown. Water. Do you drink water? How much water do you drink? You're supposed to get half your body weight in ounces every single day. If you're substituting that for Coca-Cola, if you're substituting that for caffeinated coffee or any one of these sugary beverages that are out there, you're not getting enough hydration. That's clear as day. That's our analogy right on point. If you're closing off that trickle, your body is 70% water or 60% water. And if you're closing down that water flow down to a trickle, it decreases your function, makes you more susceptible to disease. So water, you can't live 3 days without it. Start depleting that water source over time, your body is going to start getting sick. You're going to start suffering. You're going to start building chronic disease. Next, let's talk about oxygen. Oxygen, you can't go more than 3 minutes without it. Can't go more than 3 minutes without it. Try holding your breath until the end of this radio show. We'll end up with a lot of dead listeners. But most of us don't exercise. And the #1 way that we get oxygen, the #1 way that we historically, throughout history, have gotten oxygen is by exercising. And for most of us, throughout the years, that has typically been just our work. But what do 85% of Americans do for a living anymore?
They sit in a chair, probably.
Sit in a chair at a desk in front of a computer. And if you ask my wife, who does the exact same thing, she's an architect, she'll say, oh yeah, I forget. I forgot to get up. I forgot to move around. The research on sitting is such that every time you sit for an hour uninterrupted, you've just taken 14 minutes off of your life expectancy. And the rate of chronic disease that goes through the roof with people that do not get up and move is abysmal. Next week, we're going to be talking with Nate Gay from Trinity Fitness about the best way to exercise, the best way to improve your life quality. And I'll give you a preview. It's high-intensity interval training. But really, the key is exercise, because every time you exercise, every time you move, you increase the blood flow to the area. And the real purpose of blood is to bring oxygen to cells and bring carbon dioxide away from cells to aid in those metabolic processes that make you able to do what you're doing on a daily basis. And you need that oxygen to do that. But none of those things matter without nerve supply. And I'm going to talk about that right after we come back from the break.
But you don't want to go anywhere. You're listening to Maximize Living Radio on KFOR, FM 103.3, 1240 AM. Stay right where you are. We'll have more in a moment. Okay. Here we go. Maximize Living Radio on KFOR, FM 103.3, 1240 AM with Dr. Jake Tucker. Maximize Living Radio, Good Life Family Chiropractor. All right. Cancer, our subject, the broad subject here, helping us not only just prevent it, but to have a knowledge base about it so that we can be a healthy person.
Yeah, the best way to beat cancer is to never get it. We have an abysmal survival rate of cancer, especially breast cancer. Breast Cancer Awareness Month is all around us. Everything's been pink washed, you know, this whole month. I mean, you can't walk into a store, you can't walk into a tire change place, you can't walk into an oil change place, you can't walk into any sort of place of commerce without seeing pink. But the pink washing is so focused on just cancer treatments and finding a cure. We know what the cause of cancer is. It's all those things that I just talked about before the break. Cancer cannot survive in an oxygenated environment. Cancer cells do not metabolize oxygen. Because of the mitochondrial damage that it is in a cancer cell, they only process sugar. So oxygen, you need oxygen. Number two, sugar. You can't have too much of sugar. If you deprive yourself of sugar, guess what? Your cancer cells can't survive. They die. They start starving themselves, and they won't survive. And so you need to decrease the amount of sugar that's in your diet. The average American consumes 170 pounds of sugar every single year. And then you go on down the list. You look at toxins. What do we surround ourselves in? We're all inside. We've got all these plastics, basically petroleum. If you inhale just gas all the time, like my great-grandpa did, back in the 50s, he owned a gas station. He did oil changes. He did car repairs. And all he inhaled were gasoline fumes. You get cancer. He died of lung cancer, not because he was a smoker, but because he was constantly inhaling those gasoline fumes, those plastic fumes, those petrochemicals that we have in everything. It's even surrounding our food anymore. So we need to protect our food. We need to protect our lungs. We need to protect our bodies so that we do not put in cancer-causing cells into our bodies. But the number one most important thing, and I said this before the break, you can survive 30 days without food. You can survive 3 days without water. You can survive 3 minutes without air. But you cannot survive a single second without nerve supply. If you cut your brainstem, what happens to every organ, cell, and tissue below?
It stops functioning.
Yeah, it stops functioning immediately. That's why no one's ever survived the guillotine. Nobody has ever died at the guillotine from blood loss. They die because that nerve supply, it stops instantly. And so you need that nerve supply and you need it protected. And it's susceptible to even the weight of a dime of disruption. And what that weight of a dime of disruption looks like is just, it's so small, but it disrupts the signal by up to 40%. 40%. And if that was causing you pain, you would go take an ibuprofen to cover up that pain. Don't let that be you. Call our office, 531-289-7100, or text us at 402-413-8825 so that we can get you set up with one of those discounted exam and x-rays, the full consultation and report of findings, see if your insurance will cover any of this, so we can start addressing the cause and stop covering up the symptoms. But God designed a system that perfectly surrounds and protects your nervous system to protect it. And that's called your skeletal system, specifically the vertebra, the vertebral column. Each and every single one of those spinuses, they surround and protect the brainstem, the spinal cord, and each of the nerve roots when it exits off. And it needs to be in a normal position, straight up and down from the front and 345-degree curves from the side. In that position, your spine is perfectly aligned. There's no pressure or damage on the nerves. There's no pressure or damage that can get to the nerves. You can't punch yourself in the neck and get pressure on the nerves without dislodging a vertebra first. Those vertebrae have to be in perfect alignment to protect it. And when they're out of alignment, even 2 millimeters or 2 degrees, that starts to put that weight of a dime on the spinal cord, on the brainstem, on the nerve roots. That starts to disrupt that flow of information, that flow of intelligence from your brain down your spinal cord, out your nerves, and then back up again. One of the biggest problems with pressure on the nerves, with this thing that we call subluxation, that is exactly what I'm trying to describe, is not necessarily that your brain can't communicate with your organs, but it's that your organs can't communicate with your brain to tell it to adapt to them, to tell it to adapt to these changes in blood pressure, to change the changes in heart rate. Your brain is the one that controls it, but there's cells in your heart that are trying to communicate back to the brain, and if there's any disruption in there, it needs to know. It needs to know. And I'm seeing patients that are 15 years old. I take an x-ray, and they've got not just subluxation, not just pressure on the nerves, but they've got long-term pressure on the nerves that's deteriorated into arthritis, degenerative arthritis. The only way to stop its progression is to move those bones back into alignment. You don't stop arthritis by taking a pain pill. You don't stop arthritis by taking Lyrica or any of these GlaxoSmithKline products or any of these pharmaceutical industry consumables. You stop arthritis by realigning the vertebra and getting Wolff's Law working in your favor. Wolff's Law states that if any bone is out of alignment, it starts to degenerate. It starts to become arthritic. When it's back in alignment, the stresses change back to normal, the arthritis stops. That's Wolff's Law. It's like the law of gravity. If I drop my keys, what's going to happen 100% of the time?
They hit the desk.
They hit the desk, or the floor, or the ground, wherever you are. Same thing with Wolff's Law. If I violate it, I pay the consequences. If I live in alignment with it, I become green grass. I become green grass. That final hose, and really it's the control valve on all of these 5 essentials, is that nervous system. It needs to be in alignment. And the research on this is incredible. They look specifically at heart rate variability for cancer survival, for cancer prognosis. What they found is that your heart rate variability, the ability of your heart rate to change to the stresses of your environment, if it can go up when it needs to and it can go down when it needs to, unimpeded, you have a better chance of surviving stage 5 cancer, where it's metastasized to your entire body, than if you have stage 1 cancer and a low heart rate variability. You want high heart rate variability. You want it to be able to adapt to your environment. And what controls that specifically is your vagus nerve. Vagus nerve, it exits off of your brainstem, travels down through the top couple of bones in the neck, and then branches out to every organ in your body. Vagus is it's a Latin term that means wanderer, because it wanders to every organ of your body. It doesn't travel through the spinal cord or through the spinal column like your spinal cord does, but it branches off of the top of the neck and goes down to every organ, cell, and tissue in your body, or at least the digestive ones, the ones that need to relax. It's the one that pulls your heart rate back down where it needs to go. And what they've found is that when it cannot do that, cancer thrives. When you cannot decrease the stress in your body enough to get your heart rate down, the cancer thrives. But when it can do the thing that God designed it to do, you can survive. You can beat the cancer, because there's these things that are incredible that God put inside your body called natural killer cells. Their one job is to find invaders and kill them, to find cells that have gone rogue and haven't killed themselves and kill them, because every cell in your body replaces itself on a cycle. For blood cells, that's 120 days. For heart cells, 120 days. For stomach cells, that's 3 days. If those go rogue and don't kill themselves because the environment, and we're going to talk about this at our Cancer Killer Makeover on October 21st at Epic Church at 9 a.m., Epic Church, 9 a.m., October 21st, Saturday. The tickets are on sale online right now for $20. If you call in right now, I'm going to give you a ticket for $10. I'm going to give you a $10 ticket to this event because if you want to learn how to beat cancer before you ever get it, you need to be at this event. And what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 hours and I'm going to break down all of this information in a way that's palatable and easily consumed so that you know how to not ever get it. And if you have it, how to support your body's health so that you create an environment that cancer cannot survive in. So that whatever option you decide to kill the cancer with, that you have an environment afterwards that you'll never get it again.
Here are phone numbers you need to know, 531-289-7100, or to text, if that's a more user-friendly form for you. Here it is, 402-413-8825. Final few minutes of the show coming up. Okay, October 21st, Epic Church, 9 a.m. Cancer Killers
Makeover.
Makeover.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, here we go. Not much time left on the show today. Maximize Living Radio with Good Life Family Chiropractor Dr. Jake Tucker. If you missed any of this show, you want to go back, you want to listen to it again in detail, go to Dr. Jake's Facebook, and you will be able to listen to it over and over and over again. If you missed last week's show, you need to go back, and it sets up today's show. Here are some phone numbers, 531-289-7100, or if you want to text, 402-413-8825.
So we talked before the break about this vagus nerve and how it controls the parasympathetic control of pretty much every organ in your body. And I mentioned that it descends out of the top couple of bones in the neck that surround and protect the brainstem. Well, what happens if one of those bones is out of alignment because you happen to look down at your cell phone screen too much, or you happen to work at your computer desk? Every inch that your head goes forward out of the normal position, from your ear hole to your shoulder, that should be lined up straight up and down when you stand up. When you sit down, that should be straight up and down. Every inch that goes forward adds 10 pounds of pressure to the neck. When that goes to the vagus nerve, what happens to that vagus nerve function? It decreases. It decreases. Is there any way you're going to beat cancer with low vagus tone, with low vagus function? No. There's not. You might be able to poison the cancer enough to get it to go back for a little while, but your survival rate plummets with that vagus nerve decrease in efficiency, decrease in function. So we need to make sure that that's lined up properly. And this is one of the things that we're talking about at this Cancer Killer Makeover at Epic Church on Saturday, October 21st at 9 a.m. is Dr. Charles Majors. Dr. Charles Majors, he wrote the book on how to kill cancer, and he didn't write it from a perspective of, oh, I'm never going to get it. He wrote it from a perspective of, oh, I've got stage 4 multiple myeloma. It's eating away my brain, it's eating away my bone marrow, and my body is not fighting it off. I have to figure out how to do this. And he wanted to do it outside of the medical model. The medical model is a 6-symptom-based reactive model that works very well in an emergency room, but in the case of cancer, we're failing as a society. No offense intended to the doctors. It's not their fault. They're just working with the tools that they've been given. But when you only address symptoms and you don't address cause, you're going to fail every single time. Every single time. Even if there are survival stories, the survival rate is abysmal. Abysmal. And so we need to start addressing it from a cause perspective, and this is what he did. He started addressing his oxygen supply because he found out it was depleted. He started addressing how much sugar he was consuming. He wouldn't even eat strawberries because of the amount of sugar, the amount of fructose that was in there. No maple syrup for him, none of this alternative sweeteners, nothing. He dropped it out of his lifestyle so that he could beat cancer on his own. He started exercising. He started doing all these different therapies that created a green grass environment, opened up that faucet on the hose, and then the one thing that he looked at that he had never looked at before was the curve in his neck. He didn't have one. It was completely straight. And he's a chiropractor. Chiropractors in general do not know how to fix the curve in your neck. It takes a little bit more training. That's what we do in our office. He fixed the curve in his neck. It took tension off of the spinal cord, specifically off of the vagus nerve. And guess what happened to the cancer?
Regression?
It went away. It went away completely. 6 years.
Stage 4.
Cancer-free. Without chemo, without radiation. I'm not saying that that's the way that it needs to happen for everyone. There's all sorts of different cancers, and each one responds a little bit differently to each different thing. But in his case, and for thousands of cancer patients across the country, when you start creating a green grass environment by opening up the hose, taking pressure off of the nervous system, and implementing the 5 essentials into your lifestyle, that starts to create a health environment, and cancer cannot survive in a healthy environment. It thrives in a sick environment. I'm going to give you one more analogy just so you take this away. Do rats go to a green field of grass with trees, or do they go to the garbage dump?
They go to the garbage.
And if we put garbage in the green grass field with trees and leaves and birds, do the rats stay at the garbage dump, or do they start showing up in the field?
They stay at the garbage dump.
No, they come where
come
the
to
trash
the- they
is.
come where the trash
They come to the trash. And if you take a healthy body and you start pouring trash into it, you start violating the laws and principles that keep our bodies healthy, then you will pay the consequences. And the consequence of poor living is cancer. A consequence of unhealthy living is heart disease. A consequence of unhealthy living is diabetes. We've gone through all these different conditions: neck pain, back pain, headaches. If you're going to a chiropractor for your neck pain, if you're going to a chiropractor for back pain, if you're going to a chiropractor for headaches, it's like you got a buy whatever you want card, no matter how much it costs at Nordstrom, and you walked out of there with a packet of gum. You used that card on a packet of gum instead of anything else. Or you went to a car lot, and you could have picked out any car that you wanted, didn't have to pay anything, and you walk out of there with the old jalopy that somebody just turned in that hasn't even been worked on, or upgraded or refurbished yet. Now, that's what you're doing when you go to a chiropractor and all you're focused on is your pain. When you focus on your health, you create a healthy environment. When you focus on your nervous system, you create an environment where all these 5 essentials can thrive and grow you into a healthy person. And that's what I want to do. So if you're sitting there and you want health, not just remission of symptoms, but health, creating an environment where you can truly be healthy, call that number right now, 531-289-7100, or text us at 402-413-8825. Tell us that you want to come in for that discounted exam and x-rays. Tell us that you want to come to the Cancer Killer Makeover. Tell us that you want to come to the dinner. I want to start to pour into your mind and your soul the information that it takes to not just change your life, but to change generations of lives so that we can take this healthcare system that's going down the road to more and more chronic sickness and disease and turn that around and turn it back toward health for not just me and my family, but you, yours, and this entire city and state and country.
Strong message. Thank you, Dr. Jake.
Thank you, Dale.
There we go.
All right.